Which U.S. city was the first to start the practice of redlining in Black communities? So those that are unaware, redlining is the practice of labeling neighborhoods, specifically those in minority and Black folks communities, as risky for loans and investment. Beginning in the 1930s, it started as part of federal housing policy and was carried out by the Homeowners Loan Corporation, which created residential security maps for cities across the United States during the Great Depression. One of the earliest and most influential of those cities was Chicago. So the thing about Chicago is Chicago was a major hub for the Great Migration. Between 1910 and 1970, 500,000 of us migrated from southern cities to Chicago. So when maps were created by the Homeowners Loan Corporation in neighborhoods where Black families lived, they often were labeled as hazardous and shaded in red. This was not because they were bad neighborhoods. It was specifically because the residents of those neighborhoods were Black. As a result, the people living in those neighborhoods were denied access to mortgages, could not easily invest in their homes, and had difficulty starting and expanding their businesses. Over generations, these restrictions caused lasting loss of economic opportunity and wealth accumulation, deepening this racial segregation and contributing to economic disparities and poverty in Black communities. To answer the question that was asked, although redlining was a widespread practice, the Chicago maps were some of the first and some of the most thoroughly documented and set the stage for other cities. Basically, they were the progenitor to everybody else and were the guidelines in which the other cities used for their redlining processes. So while there may be other cities, and you could argue who was the very, very first to do redlining in Black communities, the most influential, the one that set the standard for everybody, which everyone else did their redlining policies by, was Chicago. So the answer would be Chicago. That would be my answer. Redlining was officially outlawed in 1968 with the Fair Housing Act, which made it illegal to discriminate against housing based off race and other protected categories. The interesting thing about this is I talk about something like this on my Substack. One of the notes that I post, I talked about things that it only exists because of racism. And that day, that was HOAs. In it, what I basically state is that housing associations weren't created just to keep your neighborhoods nice, but they were built to keep them exclusively white. After racial zoning was struck down in the early 1900s, white developers created racial covenants that blocked Black families from owning homes. When Shelley versus Kramer in 1948 made those covenants unenforceable, HOAs stepped up to privately enforce segregation through fees, design rules, and income requirements. And some early HOAs explicitly required white home ownership. Today, while HOAs can't ban the sale of homes based on race, they still use coded language like aesthetics and noise to police Black homeowners. All of these things would mix together when you put the GI Bill with racial covenants, with redlining, with HOAs. It created a wall of economic disenfranchisement and blocked Black families from the single greatest source of wealth in the United States at the time, home ownership. When you look back and you say, why are things the way they are? Why are we in this position? How come we don't have generational wealth? How come we don't, there aren't other Black Wall Streets? How come we don't have more Black businesses? It's because the system was designed this way. This is not a flaw. This is a feature. This is exactly the way they wanted. They wanted to keep you disenfranchised and disadvantaged. And in the case of HOAs, this hurt white families also. They were being policed by these same HOAs, and these policies affected them also. But they were completely okay eating shit if it meant that they kept you disenfranchised.